Welcome to the Atheist in Recovery podcast, where we talk about finding hope in recovery. And now your host, Dr. Adina Silvestri.
Hello guys, and welcome to episode 37 of the Atheists in Recovery podcast. And today is another solo episode. Right now I'm recording this and COVID-19 is here. It's in the United States. And so when I am in quarantine, I like to watch movies. And so we're bringing back movies that move us for this episode. And specifically, we're talking about The Wizard of Oz. If you've ever lived in the United States, you probably have seen The Wizard of Oz. Like many, I have many fond memories of watching The Wizard of Oz back home in Buffalo, New York. But just in case you haven't seen it, here's what's going on in the movie. There's a little girl named Dorothy, played by Judy Garland. Her dog Toto or Tornado has just hit the farmhouse in which they live, somewhere in Kansas. They're transported to this magical land where witches exist and munchkins and the great Wizard of Oz rules all over the land. And Dorothy and Toto follow the Yellow Brick Road toward Emerald City to try to find their way back home. In their adventure, they meet a scarecrow that needs a brain, a tin man that's missing a heart, and a cowardly lion that wants courage. And so I thought we would take these four characters, and talk a little bit about how we see some of those characteristics in ourselves and what that looks like, and maybe how to change the script a little bit. Okay, so let's start with the scarecrow. So the scarecrow says, "Oh, I'm a failure because I haven't got a brain." I'm not singing these, you guys. I'm just going to read them. So what happens in active recovery when we've lost our brain? So as we all know, when we are in early sobriety, our brain isn't really functioning properly. And we drop down into this reptilian brain, the lower brain, and we are just reacting. We have very little help from our frontal lobe, our decision-making part of the brain. And so we are just in constant reaction mode. And what are some other times that we are dropping into the reptilian brain? I would say trauma. Anytime we've had trauma in our past, if we get triggered, we are functioning in that fight, flight, freeze mentality. And so, just knowing some of the brain science sometimes behind what's going on with us in early sobriety can give us hope that, this isn't going to last forever. And also, if we know what's happening, we can change our behaviors, right? We don't have to continue down that same road, the Yellow Brick Road. No, just kidding. Okay, so 2, when we've lost our heart. When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle. And yet I'm torn apart just because I'm presuming that I could be kind of human if I only had a heart, sings the Tin Man. Again, I'm not singing, you guys. So for the Tin Man reference, I feel that right now there's a loss of connection. People are feeling very isolated, very alone. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous to our sobriety. It's dangerous to our mental and physical well-being, apart even from substances, right? So really just making sure that you're reconnecting with your inner self during this time, that you are setting clear boundaries that delineates ourself. And at the same time, we're showing people that we need them. It's a time to be self-reliant and dependent. What I mean by that is, knowing your strengths, but knowing your weaknesses. If you know that you're going to be triggered in a certain way, on a certain day, in a certain scenario, you want to reach out to the people that know you best. If you know that staying home by yourself and being bored is a trigger, then you have to make sure that you're connecting with other people. And connecting is difficult right now, and I get that. But, almost everybody now has a computer. If it's not your phone, it's an actual laptop. And so you can call people, you can go on Zoom, you can do all these different things. But right now, connection is very, very important. Okay. And so number 3, when we've lost our courage. In from the lion, read what my medal says. Courage ain't it the truth. Routines are comfortable. Now more than ever, we're faced with this dilemma of developing new behaviors and new routines. Our old routines aren't working for us anymore. And if we try to make them fit, shove our little square pegs into the round holes, it's not going to happen. And we're going to end up feeling frustrated. And, those negative thoughts may start to come creeping back. And so the best thing to do is to start new routines. We have to also challenge the stories that we've been telling ourselves. I'm a failure if I slip up. That's just not true. You're a human if you slip up. Some of the other stories that I hear often in my office are, why do bad things always happen to me? Why am I always the victim? Why am I always losing jobs, relationships, status? If you're the person, in every scenario, you're the common denominator, well, then we need to look at that a little bit more closely, right? Yeah, we need to because we're our worst narrators of our stories, guys. We're horrible. And so, just kind of getting back to being courageous, we can be our worst selves when we're afraid, or we can be our bravest selves. In the context of fear and vulnerability, there's often very little in between, because when we are uncertain and afraid, our default is self-protection. So instead, let's choose awkward. Let's choose brave. Let's choose vulnerable and kind, and choose each other. Sometimes, like I said earlier, we're our worst narrators, and we need people around us. We need people we trust, whether it's clergy, a therapist, best friend, a brother or sister. We need someone that's going to poke those holes in our story, but in a compassionate way. So, in conclusion, I loved watching this movie again. I highly recommend that you do as well. And Dorothy and her friends never needed the Wizard of Oz. They never needed him to help pull them out of their struggles. As the Good Witch said, you don't need help any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas. And I believe that. I believe the power is within all of us, guys. We have the solutions to our problems. We know how to get out of our own way. Sometimes we just need a little help. Okay, guys. Well, that is the end of Follow the Yellow Brick Road, Movies That Move Us. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're looking for more, you could always head over to our private Facebook group and apply to be a member. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Atheists in Recovery podcast. For more great info and to stay up to date, head over to atheistsandrecovery.com.